Find out which bodybuilding era was the best. Next.
I created Species Nutrition with one mission in mind: to provide bodybuilders and serious athletes with no-nonsense supplements that work. I put my name and reputation on every bottle of Species Nutrition products. If you want to be your absolute best, join the evolution.
Energy pouches are the wave of the future, and Underrated Muscles Locked In is first to bring it to you. With between 50 and 100 milligrams of caffeine per pouch, you can dial in the quick, clean energy and focus you need on the go. Simple, easy to use. Pop one between your cheek and gum to get you through your day, to get you through your workout. Code RX20, underratedmuscle.com. Get locked in today.
And we are live for another episode of Heavy Muscle Radio. I'm Dave Palumbo, reporting from my house because I have no internet in my house for some reason in my studio. We are here closing in on the end of the year, and we have a controversial topic to discuss today, plus a huge victory by Shawn Clarida. We'll talk about that in a minute, but I am so happy to have my good friend, the technician, Chris Aceto, here with me. And Sid is joining us as well, helping us engineer the show. What's up, Chris? What's going on?
Just crashing into the show, Dave.
Is it just another Manic Monday?
Yeah, it is a crazy Manic Monday.
All right, yeah, I'm in a very relaxed area. It's beautiful out here. It's 75 degrees in my house. And you know what? Let's just talk about what's going on in the bodybuilding world. Shawn Clarida wins China. And I have something to say about that, to be honest with you. First of all, I want to commend Shawn for continuing to compete after the Olympia, collecting these wins he's getting. He's making money. He's got, a Mr. Olympia open qualifications going on now, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But the guy was criticized. They were criticizing him about why is he competing so much, and then, and then when you don't compete, they criticize you because you don't compete enough. The guy is bringing it, and you know what? He's picked up 2 wins in the open division that 2 other open guys could have gotten and qualified for next year's Mr. Olympia. So congratulations, Shawn. I know Shawn for 20 years. This guy is a consummate professional. The guy loves bodybuilding. He used to come to all the Bros vs. Pros challenges I used to hold back in the day for Arx Muscle. He's been with us from day one. And to see him achieve this level of success and muscularity and the size that he's put on over these years is really miraculous, and I commend him for that. And I'm going to say one thing, and I'd like to get Chris's and your opinion on this. This guy qualified for the Mr. Olympia for 2026 in the open division, okay? In the open division, twice already. Why isn't he allowed to do 2 divisions? If you are an athlete who is good enough to qualify, like Bo Jackson, okay, or what's his name?
Deion Sanders.
Deion Sanders. If you could qualify in 2 different sports divisions, whatever, why can't you do both? I don't understand it. Why would they penalize this guy for being a great bodybuilder and being able to qualify in 2 separate divisions for the Mr. Olympia? He did it the right way. He went into the open. He went into the 212. He qualified by winning, the show, and he should be allowed to compete in both divisions. I don't understand what the reasoning. There's got to always be logic behind everything, right? What's the logic? There's no conflict. They don't occur at the same time. These events. Why can't Shawn Clarida do both divisions? I ask the powers that be above who are listening to this show, think about it. It's not like there's 100 people qualifying for 2 divisions. It's not going to be a swamp, okay, of people doing it. There's maybe 1 or 2 people at most that ever do that. And it very rarely happens. And I really believe, and I'm sure Shawn would love to do both divisions if allowed. I think that he should be able to do it. I'd like to know your opinions on it.
Yeah, let me get Chris in here. I know Shawn has expressed as of last week, I believe, that he would be interested, if allowed, to compete.
Of course he would. He's going anyway.
So let me get Chris in here. Chris, we have you?
Yeah, I'm here.
Perfect. There we go. All right. We are back on. We are online. Here we go.
So what's the question?
No. So we're talking about if Shawn Clarida should be allowed of going. He just won at the China Pro 212. He's obviously qualified now for the Open and the 212. He's expressed interest in competing in both divisions on an Olympia weekend. Should he be allowed? Dave's opinion, strong opinion, is that he should be allowed to compete in both the Open and the 212 in one Olympia weekend.
Well, he's proven himself to be an open guy. Case closed.
But why would they limit him just to the Open class? He's won shows in both divisions. He's Mr. Olympia in 212. He can do whatever he wants in 212, but he won an Open show this year. He is qualified for next year's Mr. Olympia Open. Why can't he do two divisions? What could possibly be the rule? In other words, there's got to be logic behind every rule that they have. What the hell is the logic behind the rule that you can't do two divisions if you qualify for both?
I think you're thinking about it in the wrong way, Dave. If you win an Open show, you're qualified for the Olympia. Full stop.
Right. So why can't he do the 212 too?
If you've won a 212 show, you're qualified for the 212.
He did. He's Mr. Olympia. He won the Olympia. He's qualified for life anyway for 212. But he won 212 this past weekend. So he's qualified for both divisions. Why can't he do both?
The more you rhetorically ask Dave, quote the powers that be, the more you defeat your.
I can't hear this now. So
Dave, can you hear Chris?
I can't hear you either. So I don't think. Unless are you talking?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
It might be me. I don't know. I didn't change anything, but I can't hear anyone.
Can't be the main internet.
Dave, say something. Can you hear us?
I don't know.
Dave's going to check that.
I can't hear anything.
Tell you, man. It's Florida. To those, somebody
should be
that,
that's weird.
Where Patron, where did you message me? Did you message me on the RX Muscle IG or my personal? Tell me where you messaged me. I'll check the message. Dear God.
Sid, are we live, Sid?
So yes, we are live, Chris.
We can continue the show. Dave can have a break by the pool in Cape Coral.
I don't know why I can't hear you guys. I'm connected.
We can hear you perfectly. Can you hear us?
Dave, we got Dorian and
let's
standby. We got him on standby, and Dave can't come.
So let's go there, Chris. Dorian Yates, obviously it's not just Dorian. Last week it was Ronnie Coleman. Both obviously legends of sports, but weighing in with heavy, if you want to call it, harsh opinions and criticisms. The latest was coming from Dorian, saying that if you compare the eras, and we have his era where you had the tall, statuesque, the tiny waist. Now you have guys, in his words, that are 5'4" and look like a fridge.
What's the question?
How do you respond to the legends' criticisms of today's Mr. Olympias?
On Dorian's comments? I mean, when you sell every single person who sells their house thinks they're selling the best house on the block. So, and it goes back to bodybuilding. People think that, Dorian aside, because he's Mr. Olympia, of course, but people in that era, who are competing with him, tend to believe that they were far better than the bodybuilders competing today. I mean, that's just a collective thought by people who competed in that era. So, I mean, it's their. I would say that there's exceptions to the rules, like Mr. Olympia Dorian Yates was like remarkable. So was of course Ronnie Coleman. Then Phil came along and had lots of wins. And I mean, what's he mean? Does he mean that he could beat Derek, or that collectively the top 10 are better than the top 10 today? Which I don't believe.
So just to add some I'll add some content. It was in a podcast where he was talking about his era of Mr. Olympia. He specifically
play
mentioned.
The clip, Sid. Play the clip.
All right, let me try to find the clip. I mean, handling everything else we got going on right now, but
yeah. I think all right. You know what? I think my car was picking my audio up, and that's what the problem was. So that's what happened. So I figured out. You know, I just want to say something. You know, I think that it's important for for people to realize that the judges judge what's up on stage, and Derek Lunsford, okay, is the best bodybuilder in the world right now on that Olympia stage on that day. And there's no doubt about that. Chris and I was sitting in that first row. You know, whether Dorian from 1993 would have been better than that, we'll never know because Dorian from 1993 can't stand on that stage with Derek Lunsford, okay? And we'll never know that comparison. It's like trying to say, would Muhammad Ali beat Mike Tyson at his best if they were both at their best? We don't know because they never faced each other. And I think it's bad for, you know, guys from different eras to, you know, if you ask Michael Jordan who the best basketball player of all time is, he says, listen, in my era, I was the best. I don't know how I would have done against these guys today because I haven't played against these guys. And I thought that was a really, you know, very honest statement he made because he could easily have said I would be the best, right? Because everyone else thinks he's the best. But he didn't say that because he didn't play against, just like he didn't play against Will Chamberlain and all those other guys in the earlier eras. So I think it's really not fair for Dorian to make that, you know, statement that, you know, the Mr. Olympias today don't look like they should or like he thinks they should. I think the best guy on that given day is winning. And that's all that these judges can do is judge who's on stage. It's no one's fault that this era happens to be the best guys are shorter. Maybe in 2 years from now, when Andrew Jack, you know, he reaches his peak, maybe that'll all change. And then it'll be the era of the big guy again. That's just the way usually, you know, anything goes in any sport. It goes in cycles. And right now we're cycling through shorter guys, denser, shorter guys being the best in the world. You agree, Chris?
I just made the comment before you came on. I didn't know if Dorian was commenting that like he'd win the Mr. Olympia at his best, or that the top 10 from his Olympia years would beat all top 10 who are collectively placed 1 through 10 in this most recent Olympia, which I don't think is, you know.
Yeah. I think he meant the guys that are winning the Olympia are these like short, boxy, square looking, you know, refrigerator guys, whereas historically the Mr. Olympia was always won by a taller, you know, guy.
Let's just call a spade a spade. You know, would Coleman at his best win this year? For God's sakes, yes.
Of course, he's the best of all time.
You know, would Dorian at his all-time best win? Yes, I think so. Of course.
Yeah. So would Levrone. You know.
I don't know about Levrone. No, I don't know about. I don't know. So that's where you get to going down the line. Going down the line, it's like which Levrone? I mean. Dave,
we said it is best. We're saying it at their best. At their best.
228, his first Olympia, where he was at one of his best looks. You know, Derek was 244, 243 the morning of prejudge, and he's 5'5". How much muscle do you want?
Yeah. You know, there's a good comparison, Sid, if you could pull up by Gilko. Gilko put together a video of Derek posing down against Dorian, and you can see how devastating Derek's legs are from the side, you know, against Dorian. Dorian didn't have the greatest legs. He had a lot of good separation, but he didn't have the best legs. And if you could put that video up and just go through those poses, you can see Derek really holding his own, you know, pretty much, even though he would be the shorter man on stage. He's got a lot of dense muscle. And I think that the video shows it, if you can pull that up. I sent it to you in your Instagram messages, so. Yeah, if you can just
blow it up so we
blow
can
that up a little bit, maybe you can. There you go.
Can't see it. It's like a thumbtack.
I mean, the side chest. I think Derek wins that, right? That's I think Derek at the 2025 Arnold versus Dorian. What is that? Dorian when 94?
Sorry, Derek. I take it back. You're pulling into the lead here.
And obviously, the scale is probably not right. Probably Dorian looks a little bigger in person, I would think. Because he looks like he's a little further back in the way they're showing the video. Derek looks a little closer, but then again, Derek steps forward on everyone on stage, right, Chris? Derek likes to step up a little bit. Get the advantage.
I think it's problematic to compare. Where do you go next? Like Lee Haney, I mean, Arnold thought his era was the best. He still does. And Arnold probably thinks, like, if I had, was using what Dorian used, then, imagine what I would look like, which there could be some truth to that, but it's important, I think, to respect, whoever wins these shows, even amongst the competitors. That's why I try my best not to shit on some of the people who are the Arnold or the Olympia, if they're not at their best, because, out of respect for what they put into it.
No, absolutely. And like I said, you don't know who's going to be on stage. I mean, the judges can only pick the best guy up on that stage at that moment. And you know what? If everything changed next year and Andrew Jack won the Olympia, people would be saying, "Wow, this is one of the best Olympia guys of all time. He's 6'2" or whatever he is. He's 30, he's 300 pounds on stage, biggest Mr. Olympia and tallest Mr. Olympia of all time." And then what's the narrative going to be then?
Well, I mean, that's the point. It's people's narratives, They're people's opinions forged into a narrative to make their opinion sound that it's factual. The problem with that, like, video that you just put up is it's a video. One is high quality, one is not high quality. They're not to scale. The whole point is, or my point is, it's hard to judge a bodybuilding show based on photos and video. It's always better to be there. We always say that. And now we're like comparing 30 years removed to 25 years removed, Dorian's video versus Derek's video, and trying to say which guy looks better here.
Yeah. What did you put up the thing that what Ronnie said? I don't know if you got that up yet. Ronnie was asked if he would win the Olympia today.
Did you?
And
I'll pull it up right now.
Not going to be another Michael Jackson. There's not going to be another Coleman.
No, Ronnie was asked if he would win the Olympia today, and he said, I wouldn't even have to train that hard," which we know Ronnie would train that hard. But, that's like comparing Michael Jordan to, like, just some average basketball player that's currently out there. I mean, Ronnie was the greatest of all time. So that's really not a fair, assessment to ask Ronnie of course Ronnie's going to win the Olympia. There's no one better, no bodybuilder better than Ronnie ever, in the history of bodybuilding.
Ronnie can
fuck anyone's feelings.
Exactly.
How do you think you'd do?
I'd do amazing.
As in you'd win?
Easily.
Easily.
Yeah, I don't think I'd have to train as hard.
You can save that same clip for 10 years from now when Coleman will, he'll be able to say it again, because it's, I don't care what goes,
Right. But, Coleman lost to Jay ostensibly in 2001, right? And that was when Ronnie was at his all-time best. So to say he would win the Olympia is assuming he came in at his best. I mean, there's things that go wrong. Like I said, Ronnie theoretically could have lost that 2001 Olympia, and I'm sure if I ask you, you think he did win. He did lose the Olympia.
Yeah.
And
Ronnie's point is just the sum total of all his impressive wins.
Right.
In his head, which he's right. He's the best ever. And, so to ask him, how would he do in the Olympia? Please.
Well, let me ask you this question. 1997 Ronnie Coleman. I don't remember what he placed. What he placed, 8th or 9th or something like that. The last year Dorian won. How would that Ronnie have done at the Olympia this year? Would he have won?
No.
So
no, because
there you go.
He didn't have the refinement that he had in 98.
Yeah.
He looked very good in 97, very, very good, but
he didn't have the conditioning either. He didn't have that crazy conditioning.
By the refinement, he took it to another. next year.
Well, that's why, Ronnie's saying, well, I wouldn't have to train that hard. Well, if you didn't train that hard, you'd probably lose, So I think that the reason why Ronnie was so dominant was because he did train that hard. He did leave no stone unturned. He did his 2.5 hours of cardio every day. He did everything he had to do to be the best that there ever was. And so if he didn't give 100%, he would lose. And we've seen guys who have the best genetics of all time not win the Olympia. I mean, we've seen Paul Dillette not win the Olympia. The guy had insane genetics. But Flex Wheeler, ostensibly, could have been Mr. Olympia if he would have brought his absolute best in every time he got on stage. He didn't do that. So even the guys that have the greatest genetic talent and muscle and shape and symmetry, if you don't bring it, you don't win. And Derek brought it. He brought it 3 times this past year. A lot of people think that the Arnold version of him was the best, and it quite possibly might have been because he was, but he won 3 times. It's 3 of the biggest shows, that we had this past year, and that's a record that probably will never be broken.
Yeah, it's. It's just we hear this all the time, and people have variable, just ideas of what era was the best. I mean, that obviously was a. I think what this era is like, people. There's less. The more we continue to bodybuild in the open division, the less distinctive looks there are within the top 10. Like, everyone had a much different, their own unique look, like at the 98 Olympia. If you just picture in your head the top 10, how they looked, each guy had a more distinct look, I think, than the other.
Right.
Where right now, the last couple of years, for example, I mean, Derek and Hardy, they have a look that's similar, which is short and big.
Yeah.
I mean, this is an impressive bodybuilder right there, dude. What's that from the?
He's super complete. You can't. He just got no gaps in his physique, really. I mean, but like Arnold said, a good big man always beats a good short man. And that's just the way it is. We just don't have a good big man good enough to beat him yet.
Well, the problem is that the irony is, like, the 2 short guys from the show this year had the two biggest legs on the stage.
That's true. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they have arguably the 2 most complete backs on the stage.
Yeah. It's true.
And they have the most impressive hamstrings from the side on the side shots on the stage.
Right. Let me ask you a question. Shawn Rhoden, may he rest in peace. How would Shawn Rhoden, when he won the Olympia in 18, how would he have done in this lineup, you think? You think he would have won? Because he wasn't devastatingly big, but he had that symmetry, but he had the height on him.
He'd be in the running. It's just, because you just asked me the same thing that, like.
I know, but I'm just asking your opinion, though.
What I was trying to think, Dave, is you were asking me for the same comparison that Dorian is comparing him with, like, Derek, and I'm trying to compare Derek to Shawn, and I'm not trying to do that on stage. I'm trying to think of what they look directly in front of me, like, right. Who's more impressive. And if you want to go with, like, wacky size, just width and blah blah blah, I mean, Derek's got a lot of bells and whistles. If you just want, like, crazy tie-ins that make you look 20 pounds bigger than you really are, Shawn.
I mean, Shawn had the height, though, and the conditioning was always, you always had him peaked perfectly. I think what Dorian's trying to say is that the bigger guys seem to be more impressive on stage because their bodies are spread out over a larger surface area. The problem, like you said, is you got to have a guy who's got enough muscle, who's got the right symmetry, who's got the right conditioning, on that stage. And it's harder for a bigger guy to do it, or at least it seems like in this era there is. I mean, we got Samson, who won one Mr. Olympia, who doesn't seem to be able to replicate, what he needs to do to win. And now you got a guy like Andrew Jack, who's been every single year making improvements by leaps and bounds, who potentially could be the next Mr. Olympia. And if he is, we'll be saying, this is the guy, this is the standard we should be going for, until people don't like him anymore. And then they'll find something wrong with him, and they'll find someone new. I think what happens is people get sick of the same guys winning all the time, Chris, and they're always looking for the newest, next great thing to get excited about. Isn't that really what it's about?
No, I think the show, for a judging perspective, the way I see it, is everyone like top 7 are really, really good, or top 5 or whatever it may be. If you have any flaws, you get marked down, and there's people, who are not in the top 2 this year who have some flaws. They have something you can pick apart. Yes, you can pick something apart on Derek. You can pick something apart on Hardy and everyone else, but there's less to pick apart about. I'll give you the example, Dave. Like, first quarter turn to the right. If you don't have great hamstring and glute tie-in, you're already behind. I don't care how you look on all the other poses. It's just something that your eyes, this day and age is drawing attention to. When you turn from behind, if you don't have the glutes, go back home. That was Andrew's problem 2 Olympias in a row. He didn't have the glutes, right?
Right.
And so this year, when he turned from behind, he had the glutes. So it automatically, in both judges and fans' mindset, put him in contention.
Right. Let me ask you this question. We saw Chris Bumstead at the end of his career last year compete in an open show against Martin Fitzwater. A lot of people, I think you and I both, surprisingly agreed that we thought that Bumstead probably did enough to win that show. Martin obviously didn't think that. He almost beat up Giles over there in the UK for saying such. But I mean, if Chris Bumstead had stayed in the sport and put on another, say, 10 pounds, and competed, would that be what we were looking for? When we hear people saying we want a tall guy with good structure, I mean, would a Bumstead with another 10, 15 pounds have been Mr. Olympia, because we're looking for this tall guy with the small waist and the epic proportions? Maybe not the biggest guy on stage, but like kind of like a Frank Zane-ish with more muscle of the modern era. Is that what we're looking for in the open?
That's not what we're looking for in the open.
No, I didn't think so. So I don't know what guys are complaining about then.
That would not win the open. Guaranteed. No, he needs way more than 10, Dave. If you put on 10, his legs aren't that massive from the front. Right. He'd have a great side chest. He'd have some good shots. He's got tremendous quality to his muscle.
Right.
But I just think that if we're talking about, sometimes I hear Andrew's got to be bigger. Well, you think if he's got to be bigger, Chris that doesn't have to be bigger?
Well, I'm just saying, if Chris Bumstead's beating Martin, Fitzwater, who's, ostensibly 4th at the Olympia, that's putting him in top 5 contention right there already. And that's without the 10 pounds of muscle that I said that he could potentially put on. I'm trying to figure out what I think we're all looking for, this unicorn to show up who's going to be better than Ronnie ever was. And I don't know if we're going to see that again.
Because Dave, we had
not for the 10 years.
What we had Dorian for the most part, dominating. And then we had after that, Ronnie for a few of the shows, not all of them, dominating, on his wins, or maybe not because it was Jay, not dominating, but there was a consensus at a minimum that it was, Jay and Ronnie. And then you had the Phil streak where it was okay, it's Phil. Now we got like bodybuilding shows where it's like this year running into the show, you asked me at the Arnold, who's going to win the Olympia? I said, I don't know. Derek can win it. Hardy can win it. Andrew Jackson can win it. Nick can win it. Martin can win it. And Samson can win it. So it's like there's no dominant figure in it. You know what I mean? And, Samson at his best will not dominate these other guys.
No.
Hardy at his best will not dominate other guys. Derek at his best will not dominate the entire lineup.
Andrew with another 10 pounds would.
Andrew with 10 pounds, on paper he could, but you have to see them next to each other,
Well, we've seen him next to these guys at 10 less pounds. With 10 more pounds, I think no one beats him.
Well, I'm just saying, I'm not saying the hypothetical. I'm saying just at this show that we just went to, the Olympia, you do not have a dominant bodybuilder. It's not like, Phil, like the concession, okay, who's going to get second to Phil?
Right. We haven't had that since Phil Heath.
Yeah, that's
Phil
right.
Heath was the last of the Mohegans, so to speak.
That's part of the the controversy of like the shows is nobody's up there completely dominating, and we've seen people dominate.
Yeah. I think Andrew's as close as we can get right now to someone being super dominant, and he's not a young guy. So even if he wins an Olympia or two, he's not going to go and win 8 Olympias, more than likely. He's going to be a shorter reign guy if he does win the Olympia, only because of his age, But then again, guys are now competing well into their late 40s and looking great. Dexter competed to 50 years old. Kamal's still going. That's how he's doing it. Still looks great. But usually the shorter guys do better than the taller guys. But Andrew got a later start, so we might see him for a while. But, I think eventually we will see someone come out of the woodwork, a newer guy who's going to have the mindset of a Ronnie Coleman, Dorian Yates, who's going to have the genetics, of those guys, and who's going to dominate. I don't know if he hasn't been born yet or if he's still, just starting out. Maybe he's a teenager right now. I think it'll happen because it always does happen. Just when we think you're not going to have the next great thing, the next great thing shows up. And I just think that we haven't seen it yet. We're kind of in a transition period, and that's why we're seeing guys it seems like every year there's a new Mr. Olympia. And in the history of bodybuilding, we've never seen that. So either the talent pool in bodybuilding is just not as good as it used to be, or once again, we're going through like a little bit of a lull.
Yeah, well, I think that just it's nothing to make a big deal out of, simply because the depth we still have. When
Sorry.
we get ready,
I got a phone call. Am I back?
You're back. When
there. Okay.
Make a big deal. It's just
I just think we're going to hit an era. Hopefully, you and I will still be alive. Where there's going to be someone else who's going to be the next great thing. Maybe it'll be your son. We don't know.
I don't think we're coming.
They'll come to the bodybuilding world and take it by storm and win 10 Olympias. And we'll say, we didn't think Ronnie's record could ever be beaten. So-and-so won 10 Olympias, It's possible. We're just not there right now.
Well, it may not happen. We may not get another Coleman. Right? There's that option as well. Dave's getting lots of phone calls.
I can't hear Chris. Sid.
Can you hear Dave?
I might have to go out and come back in. Chris, keep talking.
Yeah, when it doesn't matter if we don't get another Coleman. This era, this year's Olympia, Brandon Curry looked his all-time best, and he ended up what spot did he end up in, Sid?
Curry, I think was 7th or 8th, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, full as a house and hard, and he's 8th place. You're going to say he's not in shape, or he's not huge, or he's not in his best condition. I thought that was his best all-time package, and he's not in the top
7th. Yeah, 7th. Just I mean, right behind Nick Walker.
Well, when he won the Olympia, he was the best on stage, and that, there was no one else better. That best at the Olympia wouldn't win the Olympia today, and I think that's what the point you're making, right?
No, I'm making the point that the depth
losing Chris
at the Mr. Olympia this year
him.
was extremely impressive, and that 15 was, as impressive as the golden era top 15. Where would your friend Lee Priest place in this year's Olympia, Dave?
I don't know why I can't hear you guys all of a sudden. That's weird.
Sid, where would you put Lee Priest in this year's Olympia? Would he beat Brandon Curry? Can't hear you, Sid. You got to pull the plug on.
Hold on a second. You got me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah. No, the only thing I was saying is, as far as like cross-generational comparisons, what also makes it so difficult really to assess is that, look at the uniformity. There is no uniformity in terms of picture and video also, right? I mean, look at pictures and videos from, like, again, if we're going back to the Dorian, the Lee era, and now, right? It is a difference. And it's hard to really get an accurate side-by-side comparison. So I don't know. I try not to delve into the whole cross-generational comparisons. I get what Dorian was trying to say. I don't agree with it. I don't agree with the notion that Mr. Olympia necessarily needs to be 6'1" or above. Mr. Olympia should be the best bodybuilder in the world, the best bodybuilder who presented themselves in the best manner that Olympia weekend. And that should be it. I mean, beyond that, I mean, again, the judges are going to judge what's in front of them. So for, again, the whole context behind what Dorian said is he was talking about, you had the likes of Lee Haney. Yeah, obviously you had himself, but the point he was trying to make also was just that, again, you had the tall guy with the teeny tiny waist, and now you have guy who's, quote, in his words, 5'4", built like a fridge, right? I mean, again, we're talking about two different generations, and it's impossible to ever get an answer. It's the same thing as LeBron versus Jordan. We're never going to have an answer on that. They're two totally different players. Fine, Jordan might not crap on today's era, but there are plenty of players from that era that do crap on today's era, saying that, what is soft, this is a weak era, it's totally different. Same applies to bodybuilding, and the same applies to other sports. No generation wants to think that the current generation is better. Dave, we got you?
Yeah, I think what we should do, let's transition. I want to talk about the Arnold Classic lineup that just came out with Chris a little bit. Chris, we have it's going to be a really good battle. Obviously, a lot of guys jumping into this lineup because there's $750,000, the biggest prize of all time in bodybuilding, at least the biggest first place prize ever in bodybuilding. Yeah. Obviously, we have Andrew Jack, Hottie in that lineup. I have to believe that's going to be the number 3 and number 2 and number 3 in the world. We're going to see these guys battling it out. Hottie, obviously, I have to believe Hottie's doing the show because of the money. I'd tell me he was crazy if he didn't, especially now that Derek is not in this lineup. Although I'm sure Hottie would have liked to go up against Derek to try to get a revenge for the Olympia. But Hottie laying it on the line here. He's saying, you know what, I'm going to go there. I'm going to dominate. I'm going to win this show. I'm going to go home with $750,000. Obviously, Andrew Jack, fan favorite, came out of that Olympia with a lot of momentum. A lot of people, can't wait to see this guy on stage. If Andrew does win this show and beat Hottie, it really moves him up into that number 1 contention spot. What's your take on this lineup?
I mean, it's the Olympia lineup essentially, minus Samson and Derek, who were 1-2 at the Arnold last year. Right? Throw in Hottie, so the show's as exciting as last year's Arnold, at a minimum, with more backstory to it because, if Hottie loses, then that changes. I heard the word narrative which I hate that word, but the narrative is changed going into the Olympia completely. And I don't think Andrew's going to let this opportunity slip by to compete against Hadi.
I think it's first of all, as a fan, I'm super excited to see this. I didn't know if we are going to get Hadi at this show, and I didn't think it was going to be as interesting. Obviously, we have Nick Walker in the show. We have Martin Fitzwater in the show. This is good. We really, aside from Derek, we have the top Olympia lineup here. And first of all, the Arnold people have got to be thrilled that they got this lineup. I mean, it's almost too good to be true. And it's actually nice that Derek's not in the lineup because he won 3 shows last year. He's the reigning Mr. Olympia. Let him sit this out. Let the other guys battle it out, kind of like the way it was in the past. And then they could all meet up at the Olympia at the end of the year and see who is going to be Mr. Olympia for next year. But I think this is a great opportunity for a lot of guys to really make a lot of money, to make a name for themselves. And like you said, to establish who's going to be the number 2 guy to go up against Derek. Obviously, Hadi I would believe Hadi has to be the favorite only because he's came in second. Although, Andrew his stock just seems to be going up and up and up. And of course, Nick Walker is looking for revenge. How do you think Nick Walker will do in this lineup? Comparable to the Olympia, or can he move up, higher than we think?
I think a show like this, I think anything can happen at these shows, period. What's Nick going to look like? We don't know, he's got to be improved, I think there's some predictability with everyone else, how they'll look, because we know what their best looks like. Nick's had a handicap simply because he didn't bring his best. So we don't, the expectation is, let's see what he brings. So he's the unknown, where we know what Hadi can look like. We know what Martin can look like. We know what Andrew can look like, and has most recently looked like with those 3. So, it's hard to say where, a little bit hard to say how Nick does, because we don't know in recent memory, the Olympia, what he looks like against everyone else.
I wonder what Bob Ciccarello is predicting that Nick will come in what place. I wonder if he's moved him up to 7th place now that Derek's not in the lineup. But Tonio Burton in this lineup too, who really, whose stock went up a lot this past year. The guy's an absolute freak, super round muscles. He could certainly be in that top 5 for sure. And I think it's going to be a really good show. And historically, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, historically, the Arnold, a lot of people peak for the Arnold, but they don't do well for the Olympia. So we could see a slightly different, I guess you could say, flavor for when we see at the Arnold. In other words, Nick Walker historically has always done well at the early shows in the year and seems to have a little bit more trouble at the Olympia, whereas other guys seem to peak for the Olympia and they don't do well early in the year. What do you suspect? And if you had to look at that top group of guys we just mentioned, who do you think will be at their best, and who do you think might not be at their best?
I expect them all to be at their best. I just expect that, with that type of money on the line, every single person will, or at least should be at their best. Should be at your best.
If you cheat with $750,000 on the line, shame on you. I wouldn't cheat on my diet when I was paying to enter shows. So with $750,000, you'd think that'd be a lot of motivation to be at your absolute best. You're 100% right, Chris. I wonder, from the era, when, not to go back and try to compare, but Wheeler used to compete a lot because he liked the money, and he even said he competed a lot of shows because he wanted to earn prize money. I mean, with the amount of money that's given away these days, I wonder if Wheeler would have been at his absolute best, competing for $750,000. I bet we would have seen a better Flex Wheeler. We probably would have seen a better Kevin Levrone if their era had this much money at stake. We're losing Chris there. Yeah, we have some serious connection issues here today, huh, Sid? I don't even hear Sid at this point.
Yeah,
I can hear you, Dave.
Yeah,
you know,
because
we can hear.
Because I mute myself when I put you guys on stage, and then when I'm forced to come back in, then I have to unmute myself. But yeah, we got Chris. All right, and I will see my way out.
No, but yeah, what I was saying is, Chris, that the era from that we just we call the '90s the golden era. Those guys, some of the guys that were maybe a little on the lazier side, I bet you those guys for $750,000 first place would have really busted their ass a lot more. The Wheelers and Dillettes and all those guys. We probably would have seen even Gorman. We probably would have seen guys looking insane.
I don't believe that one bit.
See, they still would have looked the same. Chris, I didn't even need money to motivate me. I wouldn't come in at anything less than my best.
That's my point.
But,
if that is my point. If you're not motivated intrinsically, no amount of external WIDA contract and 100,000 at the Arnold, if that can't motivate you, for God's sake.
Yeah. But that's a lot of money. Look? We've debated this, for quite some time. Do you think Jake Wood will respond to Arnold's $750,000 for 2026 and raise the Olympia? Or will he just let Arnold be number one?
Dave, only if Arnold criticizes his show like Dorian criticizing Derek and.
No, because I think Jake had every right to keep the 25 Olympia the way he did, because that was in 25. He was still the highest. But now going into 26, Arnold's up to 750. Now it's going to come around to the Olympia. Does the Olympia allow themselves to be lower first place than the Arnold?
He can get away with it. He doesn't have to. Previously, I thought he had to. But I mean, I really don't know.
Because if he doesn't raise it, what that allows Arnold to do the following year is to say, come do the Arnold Classic, apply to do the Arnold Classic. We are the number one prize money in the bodybuilding industry. He can bill his show as that if he wants,
It doesn't matter, Dave. Everyone's going to do them both because of the money. It's because the money's close enough that if you're a top guy, you'll do them both.
Right, but Arnold likes bragging rights and stuff like that. I mean, I would certainly brag about it if I was the number one. If I'm giving away the number one prize money in the industry, I mean, you're going to see Arnold do that.
How much more is the prize money than the Olympia first prize?
I don't know. What is Jake up to 600? So it's 150,000 more, right?
Yeah, 150 is bragging rights.
Yeah.
If it's 50, 100, 150, yeah, there's some bragging rights there.
I think Jake's got to go 700. He's got to go 800 for the Olympia. I think he's got him. Just to say we're the number one, we're the Super Bowl. We give away the most money. You got to do it. You got to make that. You got to make that. You got to make that claim. I really believe that. But we'll see. I mean, we'll see what Jake decides to do. It's a good move on Arnold's part, to keep raising the stakes. And I always. There was an interview with Usain Bolt once, who was the world's fastest man, obviously at 100 meters, 200 meters. And when he would break the world record, Chris, he would like pull up at the end a lot of times. And they'd ask him, why don't you just, give it 100% and break it by as much as you can? He said, well, because I get paid every time I break the world record. If I go too fast, I won't be able to break it again. I won't get paid, my bonus structure. So it's kind of the same way. Like, you don't want to go right to $1 million, because if they keep raising it a little bit each year, it kind of creates this arms race, right? Which keeps the interest going. Rather than just going right to $1 million, and then people forget it's at $1 million. They'll forget it'll be at $1 million for 2 years, and people will forget that it never was at $1 million. They'll think it was at $1 million for the last 20 years. So it's nice that they keep raising the prize money every year, because we get more and more excited about, oh my God, 750, then Jake will be 800, Arnold 900,000. Holy mackerel, $1 million. We finally got here. And then what'll happen, Chris? Once you get to 1 million, 1,500,000, it doesn't mean anything. You have to go to 2 million from 1 million. You can't go like $1,000,001. That no one cares about that. Once you hit $1 million, you have to go to 2 million. Otherwise, it doesn't mean anything. So
we're not going to see a $2 million first prize.
It's going to happen. I'm telling you, it's going to happen in the Middle East. I can promise you that. Or from a Middle Eastern backer. It's going to happen from.
Backers or not, you're wrong.
All right, we'll see.
Payday.
You and I might know the guy who might do it. So
that's why I said you're not going to see a $2 million payday.
You never know, Chris. With the right sponsorships, right? With the right sponsorships. So, yeah, but look, it's exciting to speculate and to think about it, but we have the Arnold coming up a lot faster than you're thinking. Guys, if you haven't gotten your hotel reservations and made your flight, I have to book my flight. You better do that because those hotels fill up really fast, and it's really very convenient to stay right around the area where you can kind of walk to the expo and walk to where the show is. If you have to stay by the airport, it's a pain in the neck because there's a lot of people there. So my suggestion is, and I don't even know what the hotel situation, I'm sure there's still some hotels open. Book your trip now. All right. I'm sorry, guys, that we had to do this show the way we did. It was a little screwed up, but hopefully by tomorrow I'll have my internet back on. The company that I pay this insane amount of money to, Chris, for a business fiber line, for some reason can't figure out what's wrong with it. And they're like, well, we'll try to get someone. I said, you'll try to get someone. If I told you how, I don't even want to say how much I pay for this line. I said, I'm supposed to be #1 priority for you guys. I want someone out there today. There's no excuses. So hopefully the line will be fixed in time for after hours tomorrow. But as we say every week here at Heavy Muscle Radio,
truth hurts.
Sure does. We'll see you next week, guys.